Yo, what's up guys? Master Demo here, and today I'll be showing you my CZN tier list for the 5-star standard banner alongside all their stats and cards while explaining why they are in their respective tiers. I will however leave a disclaimer and remind you guys that this is a beta and everything is subject to change until official release with a lot of theoretical guesses, so I want you guys to consider this more of an informative tier list to guide you what I think you should look for a character or how you want to build your teams. I also think that most characters will be playable in the right team, if not all, so if you're just playing for fun, just enjoy the game. And finally, criteria for this tier list will be based on how much the character has to offer for the team and how flexible they are compared to other characters, which makes them more valuable since you'll be able to play them in most teams. And with that, let's start with the tier list. Okay, so starting with Luke, heading over to his cards, we have his 3 generic cards. He has 2 generic attack cards and 1 generic shield card. His next card, called Rapid Fire, deal damage 50% times 2, create handgun bullet equal to number of critical hits, critical chance plus 15%. So this basically just means he will create special cards after his critical hits. And let's read over the first one, called Magnum Shot, 70% damage. Silver Shot, deal damage 50% attack weakness, increase damage by 100%. And then Uranium Shot, deal damage 50% if a target has shield, increase damage by 100%. And then we have this Tracer Shot, damage 30% and mark +1. I'm assuming this is for you to stack to deal more damage. I'm not too sure though. But heading over to his next card, Self Reload, create 2 handgun bullets, which is what we previously shown. Seize the Opportunity, skill card, shield 100%, increase damage of the next bullet card by 120%. And it has a special effect that says at the start of the turn, 50% chance to reduce this card's cost by 1. Effect removed when another card is used. His next card, Dance of the Demon, deal damage equal to the number of bullet cards used this turn, 50%, damage 100%. His next card, Deadly Rounds, deal damage 100%, increase damage by 40%, equals to the number of the bullet cards used this turn. Okay, that's it for all his cards. Let's now head over to his Ego skill, which is basically your ultimate skill. Lethal Design, 250% damage plus 15% damage for each card in your hand. Okay, so based from his skills, it looks like you want to be stacking those bullet cards and drawing them as much as possible to deal damage. And with his hold skill needing to have cards to execute most of his damage. This shows that he's a very conditional character wherein you have to execute certain combos and stack them up before he can really do his best attacks, and making most teams want to play around him to draw cards, which makes him not as flexible as other characters and mainly offering only damage for the team. So with that in mind, I would put him in B tier. So next up we have KHALIPE, and then her cards. She has 1 generic attack card, 1 2 cost attack card, and 1 generic shield card. And her next card, Vulture Ejection. Deal 140% defense-based damage to all enemies, 80% shield, and 1 silver veil. Celestial, when using a card with cost 2 or higher, this card activates. This card is not discarded at the end of the turn. And then Retrieve, when this card moves to the graveyard, return it to hand, remove recovery upon activation. Greatsword Aquila. Deal 220% defense-based damage to all enemies if Vulture Launch is in your hand. Move this card to your hand and reduce its cost by 1 for 1 turn. That's a previous card. Overpower. Gain shield 200%. Deal tenacity damage to all enemies. And then we have Celestial. The same thing we had for the previous cards ago. Rally. Gain 200% shield, draw 1 highest cost card. And then Full Salvo, ultimate skill, deal 200% defense based damage to all enemies for each card in hand with cost 2 or higher, plus 80% damage, retain all cards in hand for 1 turn. When this card is used, end the turn. And then we have her Ego skill, Charisma of Resolve, all enemies defense base damage 300%, and then she creates 1 vulture launch. Based from her skills, she can deal insane amounts of damage and AoE, while at the same time giving your team extra defense for survivability, which on top of that has cards which make her combos more consistent because of retain, and not needing for you to wait for RNG to pull the right cards all the time. As well as her cards automatically activate without needing to use her action points just by using any 2-cost cards from any character, which makes her useful even without getting her cards to start her combo. Basically, she's a character who can deal insane amounts of damage with consistent combos, which can also be used by the entire team, while at the same time giving her team defense for survivability. With that, I think she's S tier and one of the best characters currently in the game. Next we have Magna. Her cards, she has 3 generic cards, 1 attack card, and 2 shield cards. And then her next card, Ice Fragment. Crystallization 2 at the start of the turn, gain counter 1. And she has a lead or lead, I'm not too sure how to pronounce that. At the start of the turn, 50% chance to reduce this card's cost by 1. Effect removed when another card is used. Glacial Iron Fist. Deal 150% defense, base damage, gain fixed shield equal to 50% of damage dealt. Ice Wall. Gain shield 100%, gain counter 2 for 1 turn, counter applies to all enemies. Frost Charge. Shield 100%, apply 2 vulnerable to all enemies. Storm of Bitter Cold. When gaining shield from a card, gain counter 1. And we have the same passive or we had from the last card. Then moving on to her ego skill. Absolute 0. Defense base damage 200%. Reduce max counter by 5. Increase damage by 20% equals to that amount. Based from her skills, she is a complete defense character where she gives you insane survivability through defense cards, and while at the same time gaining her damage from stacking her counter, which basically makes her deal damage after getting attacked. She's easy and straightforward. Her stacks are easily done without much conditions. Has a debuff to help the team and can pretty much fit in most teams due to the amount of support and survivability she can provide for the team. And with that, I think she's a solid A tier character. Next we have Rin and her cards. She has 1 generic attack card, 1 2-point attack card, and 1 generic shield card. Her next card, Drawing Slash, damage 120%, obtain Dark Cloud Stance, Dark Cloud Blade Art, damage increased by 50%. And she has a haste passive. This card does not reduce the enemy's action count. Dark Cloud Arcane Art Destruction, obtain Dark Cloud Stance, draw 2 rinse cards. Dark Cloud Arcane Art Annihilation, damage 180%. Dark Cloud Blade Art, damage count increased by 1. And she has the haste passive. Dark Cloud Force Art, for 1 turn retain Dark Cloud Stance. Dark Cloud Blade Art, for 1 turn plus 30% to your attack card damage. Dark Cloud Blade Art, effect that triggers from the cards when Rin is in Dark Cloud Stance state. Dark Cloud Arcane Art Black Mist, damage 160%. Dark Cloud Blade Art, damage count increases by 1 according to the number of skill cards in the hand, max 5 times. Then moving on to her ego skill. Black Cloud Secret Technique Slash, 400% damage, and then gives 2 vulnerable. Rin is a DPS, and based on her skills, she can deal insane amounts of damage by having her stance active, which upgrades her cards and sets up her combos. Some of her cards also have a passive effect where you can make the enemy's turn go slower, which makes you be able to use some of her cards without escalating the enemy's turn. Her ego skill also gives a huge amount of raw damage without any conditions, and giving the enemy a vulnerable debuff, which helps your team to dish out more damage for the next turns. Basically, she focuses on dealing huge single target damage without needing much conditions, and can provide a debuff for the team, which makes her good for solo bosses or strong single enemies in general. With that, I think she's a solid A tier DPS. Next we have ORLEA, or ORLEA, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Her cards, she has 3 generic cards, she has 2 attack cards and 1 healing card. Her next card, Sacred Censor. Generate 2 creation cards, 1 star. Her passive, Outbreak of War, place this card on top of the draw pile at the start of battle. These are the cards she generates. Softy, for 1 turn, increase damage dealt by 10%. Retain, increase the damage of the next attack card used by 5%. Swiftly, deal 60% damage. Preserve, damage increases by 40%. Toughy, 80% shield. Retain, heal 30%. Our next card, Growth Acceleration, heal 50%. Select one of your own cards in hand and trigger Preserve effect 2 times. Annoying, deal 40% fixed damage equal to the number of cards in your hand. Growing Creature, generate 1 creation cards, 1 star. Retain, change this card to creation 3 star. And then we have the cards that she will generate. So there's 3 stars. We have Softy. For 1 turn, increase damage dealt by 35%. Retain, increase the damage of the next attack card used by 20%. 3 stars 50. Deal 200% damage. Preserve, damage increased by 150%. 3 star Toughy. 250% shield. Retain, heal 100%. Will of Light. Heal 200%. Activate the Preserve effect of all cards in hand. Moving on to her Ego skill. Salvation. Generate 1 of each creation, 2 stars. So she's gonna generate all of her creations, starting with 2 stars. ORLEA or ORLEA, based from her skills, is a support DPS hybrid where she can provide both damage and healing for the team, and being able to freely choose and decide based on different situations. On top of that, most of her cards have Retain, which makes it so once you pull that card, you'll be able to keep it and upgrade your cards easily without losing them. And then she has a card which is guaranteed at the start of your turn, so you can use it as soon as you can, or to upgrade and keep it for later. And because of the amount of flexibility with both damage and support she can provide, she is arguably the best or one of the best characters to have in Standard Banner, which makes her S tier. Next we have Mei Lin. Her cards, she has 2 generic attack cards, 1 shield card. Her next card, Jewel of the Flame Dragon. Increase attack card damage by 40%. When using an attack card, apply 1 passion weakness to the target. Her passive, unique, this card cannot be duplicated. Outbreak of War, place this card on top of the draw pile at the start of battle. Rising Dragon's Fire, 100% damage, plus 2 Ember, combo, 1 additional hits. Unity of Attack and Defense, draw your basic card 2, reduce its cost by 1. Spirit of the Aramata, for 2 turns, increase your weak point damage by 100%. On defeat, gain action 2 points, and she has Retain. Descending Flame Dragon, deal 300% damage, destroy, retain embers. Her passive, attack weakness, this card's attack applies as a weak point. Then moving on to her Ego skill, Flame Dragon Ascending. For 1 turn, critical chance 100%, critical damage increases by 200%. Mei Lin, based from her skills, provides consistent damage and debuffs, and also being able to draw cards and reducing their cost. And then her Ego skill providing an insane crit chance and crit damage boost, which makes her a pretty well-rounded and flexible character who can provide her team decent damage, good debuffs, card draws, and crit chance and crit damage buff, which in my opinion easily makes her S tier. Next we have Veronica. Her cards, she has 2 generic attack cards, 1 shield card. Her next card, Firing Preparation. Create 1 Ballista card. At the start of the turn, create 1 Ballista cards. Unique passive, this card cannot be duplicated. Outbreak of War, place this card on top of the draw pile at the start of battle. Ballista card, at the end of the turn, 150% extra attack to a random enemy. Unusable, this card is unusable if this card is in hand at the end of the turn, exhausted. Repose, gain shield 100%, draw other combatant cards 2. Pendant of Resolution. When another combatant uses skill card, gain reload 1. Sir Kowalski. Reload 1, draw 1. Ready Bombardment. Increase max stacks of reload by 1, gain reload 1. And her Ego skill, Hunting Time. Deal 250% piercing damage to all enemies, gain maximum reload. Veronica, based from her skill, seems to be a sub-DPS support character who can provide some damage and ramp it up with her reload stacks, and her other cards being able to draw cards for the team while attacking her reloads. While she seems pretty useful for card draws and consistent damage, she lacks debuffs and buffs and requires stacks to deal some of her damage, which makes her pretty average for most teams. Although with some characters like Luke who want card draws where she can have more value, but because of the lack of flexibility and use, we will place her in B tier. Next we have RENOA. For cards, she has 2 generic attack cards, 1 shield. Our next card, Echo of Sorrow. Deal damage 140%, create 1 Dirge Bullet. Dirge Bullet, deal damage 160% when moved to the graveyard. Perform extra attack on a random enemy 80%. Exhaust, when used, this card moves to the exhausted pile. Instant Judgment. Deal damage 180% if Dirge Bullet is in hand. Discard 1 and increase damage by 100%. Ballad of Pitch Black. Deal damage 50% times 3, increase damage by 20% for each Dirge Bullet in hand. Flower of Devoured Fate. Discard up to 2 cards from your hand, generate that many Dirge Bullets. Resolute Assault. 180% plus 80%, damage discard all Dirge Bullets and apply plus 80% damage for each discard. Moving on to her Ego skill. Blackthorn. Draw all Dirge Bullets from the draw pile and graveyard, 300% damage. RENOA is a DPS character, and based on her skills, she relies on discarding her cards or some of the team's cards in order to deal a huge amount of damage. She does have retain on some of her cards to make her combo be more consistent, and also having innate card creation for most of her cards, which doesn't make discarding a problem. She deals pretty good damage, self-sufficient, and doesn't really require much setup, which makes her a decent DPS that we will be placing in A tier. Next we have HUGO. His cards. He has 2 generic attack cards, 1 shield card. His next card, Hunting Instincts. When another combatant uses an enhanced or shield card, gain Hunt Commence 1. Outbreak of War, place this card on top of the draw pile at the start of battle. Fan of Daggers. Deal damage to random enemies 60% times 3. Number of targets hit, gain Hunt Commence. Haste, this card does not reduce the enemy's action count. Quick Fix, deal 80% times 2 damage if in commence the hunt state, draw 1 attack card, has haste buff, or passive rather. Dingo Howling, shield 100%, commence the hunt 2. Way of the Resolver, extra attack of hunt, commence damage increased by 40%. Has a unique passive, this card cannot be duplicated. And then his Ego skill, Last Resort, 250% damage to all enemies, plus 30% commence the hunt damage. HUGO is a DPS character with some AoE damage, and based on his skills, he relies on being on his hunt commence state, where he gains access to more damage and activates some of his card's extra effects, and his Ego skill dealing AoE damage and buffing his commence the hunt state with more damage. While he can do damage in AoE, his Ego skill cost is high and takes some time to generate, where he mainly relies to deal most of his damage for AoE and only buffing his comments of the state, which makes his overall AoE and damage downline suffer greatly, which makes him seem to be pretty average, so we will place him in B tier. And finally, our final character, KAYRON. His cards, he has 2 generic attack cards, 1 heal card. And his next card, Echo of Utility, damage 220%. Void, create 2 cards. Futility, status ailment, exhaust. Brand of Annihilation, deal damage to all enemies 360%. Reduce cost this turn by number of banished cards. Black Hole, damage 240%. Increase damage per banished card plus 40%, max 10 times. Oath of Vanity, Void creation changes to an attack card with damage and healing effect 80%, cost 1. Damage 80%, healing 80%, changes your utility card and gives it extra effects. Echo of the Unbound, damage 240%, create 3 void cards, increase damage by that amount plus 40%. And then we have his Ego skill, Rift of Nothingness, deal damage to all enemies to 100%, banish all void in hand, increase damage by that amount plus 80%. KAYRON is a DPS character, and based on his skills, he can deal a huge amount of both AoE and single target damage, and also being able to banish cards, which in turn helps him stack damage and reduce costs of some of his cards, and also being able to upgrade some of his cards to do damage and provide some healing. He seems to have insane base damage for all his cards, and having an ego skill that doesn't cost too greatly, which deals a huge amount of damage and adding more damage based on the amount of banished cards he has. And at the same time, synergizing with his banished cards, which makes his other cards significantly stronger. And with this, we will place him in A tier. That's it for the tier list, and if you think the information in this video helped you, please drop a like and subscribe. And if it hits 100 likes, I'll do guys and more in the future. Thanks for watching, guys.